Hello, this is Ross, and welcome back to a sort of light-hearted refight of Waterloo. It's using a quick play version of my new NAPS 1815 rules. This is the position, as you can see, from behind the British lines, with a very young Wellington there playing his first game. So these rules are pretty easy to pick up. And the little green islands you see represent the British bridge, where he's placed a line of firing infantry, with his reserves being held behind the hills where they can't be seen by the enemy artillery. And a slight variation on the game, the French, which I'll be commanding, have been set up pretty much as they were on the day. As a general rule, one infantry figures roughly 500 men. The guys are organised into divisions, as you can sort of see by the blocks. And what Haye's gone for is, rather than rely on the Prussians turning up later, he's done what Wellington should have done, and actually brought in an extra few divisions, as you can see on the bottom right hand corner, of infantry, which have taken as being the soldiers that Wellington erringly left at Halle, about 15,000. So they come in very useful. It's also managed to recruit quite a lot more cavalry, very useful. 3 divisions of heavy cavalry, and they'll come in very useful as well. I think that's all those guys who are wasting their time on picket duty and running messages around have all been drafted in for the full force. So we won't be needing the Prussians today. Oh, and just to explain a bit more on the map, you can see the garrison being placed in Hougoumont. Let's go on the other side. It's a bit of a stretch. And he's going to occupy that with some Scots. Quite a lot of them, as many as you can get in there. So there's a couple of thousand men guarding Hougoumont. Just managed to clip over a few cavalry figures. So you can see good view there of the British lines. And a bit of an audience has turned up to watch the game. Quite the big match. And more helpers as start to mass, which will be Durland's attack column, the one my hands above, plus there's 3 other divisions. There's 4 divisions altogether, and you can see Arnie's having a good look at those, thinking how to deal with those boys coming his way. So opening turn, the French start with a salvo of artillery. Get it very simple in this one. Each man, sort of man character you see on the with a gun represents a cannon. So with the grand battery, it's 4 lots of cannons, each with 4 figures. That's 16 dice. The guys they're shooting at are sort of defended, so you got them hitting on 6s. Took a few of those off, and we're just doing straightforward. If you get the hit, you take a base off. Okay, good overview picture of the battlefield. Just checking the dice, see how many hits he managed. Right, so looking at this position, one of the key parts of this game system, this rule system, is that if it's pretty much unlimited movement in a straight line. It's a bit more complicated in the full version, but the principle is if a turn represents an hour, then why does it take 6 turns for, say, a cavalry unit to go across what would only be at most a couple of miles of space? Get there in 1 turn, they can do it in 1 turn. The interesting part then is the other side can react if that activation comes into his active area. It's more explained. So, quick background shot there. So Arnie's taking advantage of this rule. So I'd rather just sit there getting battered by those artillery. The Scots Greys have gone straight over the top. So the way the rules work, they stop at the long range of the cannon. Cannons fired. The grand battery did some damage. Then came to short range. If the artillery passed the test, then fight grape shot, which would be double dice. They didn't pass that. They fired another round, killed quite a few cavalry, and then the cavalry hit, killed, well, about 40% of the gunners. The rest have run behind Durland's columns, who have now been surprised by the cavalry coming over the hill, and they're not in square. So you can, what we do then is roll for each base. So if you've got, say, 12 in a division, roll 12 dice. and decide the number they need in order to form square. One dice representing each base or each battalion. How you arrange them on the bases is totally irrelevant, so just make them look as if they're in squares, whichever way you fancy. And the way it works out on here, that made quite a few didn't make into squares and were chopped up by the cavalry. Why didn't Wellington think of that? Silence not the big guns, break up D'Erlon's attack before he gets going. Yeah, another angle there. Hopefully you can see what's going on. In the distance, the Scots Greys are hacking away. Oh, another thing with this game is when you fight a melee, again, the turn's an hour, so they fight numerous rounds of melee until one side or the other loses. In the full game, fatigue can just halt them. But in this one, you just keep fighting until one side or the other wins a round of melee. That the loser backs off. The attacker will either follow up or sort of backs off from there. There's the happy faces there. It's going rather well at the moment. Oh, yeah, actually going to need some more dice for this. I'm not sure if it's this tile, this picture. Just about to see. What happened then was the Scots Greys have followed up, bashed the columns. The columns are retreating backwards. That's brought them in, thank goodness, at a reserve of lancers behind them. So just like in the movie, as the Scots Greys are tiring, running out of steam, the lancers come charging over the hill and countercharge them right by the guns. So bizarrely, even though D'Erlon's column is nowhere near where it needs to be or should be, we've ended up with kind of what happened. D'Erlon's column streaming back, the Scots Greys getting a bit overexcited, and the lancers coming in. There we are, all good stuff. Casting some get stuck in. And you can see there in the middle top of the picture that the Scots Greys are now, they lost a round of melee with the Lancers, and they're now running back, and the Lancers are trying to chase them. Didn't quite catch them this time, but they've got them on the run. There's not many of those Scots Greys. And surviving gunners can now try and reoccupy the cannons, and those divisions of D'Erlon's can try and rally themselves and get themselves back into position again. So certainly halted that assault before it got going, and quite a lot of them have been killed. Right, over to Hougoumont. So a couple of divisions are going to try their luck there. There is another piece of artillery which tried to soften them up. There's a 4-gun battery, so trying to get 6s. And I managed to cram in about 9 figures, I think. So there's a full division in Hougoumont. It's probably a little bit, well there we are, you've got the gardens and all the areas around. It's quite a large area. So there's about 2,500 men defending that. A couple of divisions coming down to have a go. A long shot there. Okay. Well, the way the situation, when you attack a garrison like that, garrison gets defensive fire with half the bases that are inside. And it's short range in the opens, just needing 4s. So 5 dice killed a couple of division there. We then fight around a melee. Well, fight melee, close range firefight until one side loses. The attackers get all their bases, but they need 6s. And defenders get all their bases, only need 4s. So roll those off. First attack on Hougoumont gets repulsed. Fairly heavy casualties, but the garrison's being weakened. Look of anguish on one of my young ADCs. So the situation you see in the middle now, if you notice, the Lancers are no more because the 2nd Division have heavy cavalry, taken advantage of the Lancers being tied in the open, have come streaming through to rescue their Scots Greys who've rallied behind the hill, what's left of them. And they've now sent the Lancers flying. So it's become a real cavalry to and fro in the middle of the battlefield. Excuse me. Which the British are getting the better of. So they see a close-up in the middle. The household cavalry charging to the Lancers, who did manage to get their counter-charge in. So both sides are charging. And the way we've done it, both just hitting on 4s, counter many bases, roll them off, take off the casualties. Highest score wins. Oh, so roll those off. And again, the British cavalry came out on top. So this is behind the British lines again. You can see strong reserves all the way across the line. Yeah, very strong reserves. And you can see there that the Lancers actually rolled really well, killed a few of the heavy cavalry, and won the melee and sent them back and followed up and did another round, and were actually winning that one and managed to kill the household cavalry. So it was a big day for the Lancers. Unfortunately, this did mean that they were now right in front of the British guns, who were able to fire short range and just obliterated them. So there goes the cavalry and you can see at the bottom of the screen there what's left of the heavy cavalry brigaded together to form a new Union brigade from the survivors. Just like the real thing, eh? Setting up the options for the next turn. The brotherly rivalry starting so young. Oh, and there's another one. Another brother, that is. Okay, so I want to do here, trying to rally those divisions in Dearlord's column that were beaten up by the Scots Greys, and also trying to reman the cannons. Just doing simple morale tests there. And I think of the 3 columns, I think 2 did actually rally and 1 didn't, although they have taken casualties, of course. And just reoccupying the guns, chance to shoot again. So we decided to abandon the plan for the Dearlord's column to come piling through this sort of left flank as happened in the real battle, British left flank that is, and to go to the road and try and smash their way straight through Haye Sainte instead. So that's the new plan. Because of the manoeuvres to get them all around there, they can't quite get there in one turn, but they're on their way. Just getting to long range. The garrison in Haye Sainte starting to shoot out at them, reduce them a bit. Of course, the artillery decides to join in. They're doing damage, so they're getting quite beaten up, that column. But there are quite a lot of them. And the garrison is gritting their teeth a bit. Oh, you can also see a close-up here of the Hougoumont garrison still there, fighting off numerous attacks. I think one of my ADCs got hold of the camera here, so a couple of unusual shots. There we are. See the artillery pieces here that have been blazing away at Hougoumont, and the back of the column, which has got a lot of gaps in it now. The artillery really did their job on them. And also the reserve are coming forward. They're going to block the attack on the Haye Sainte before it even gets there. Yeah, push them as far as you get. Just get to long range. I can reach. What this does do, of course, is bring in the survivors of the Grand Battery. And you can see, still got 9 of the 16. So they lost 7 in that to the Scots Greys. And they've now got a clear shot at those British who advanced, and they've stopped at long range of the column before they can engage or try to attempt the melee. So they take quite a few casualties. Yep, there's the guns. Let's show them shooting away. Whoop! Quite a big chunk taken out of those that British division. As you can see, the whole front rank's gone. 4 bases lost. And now the other division that was behind the guns has come through the guns, and that's now got to long range and started shooting at them. It's a very fluid game. If you start moving and attack a column or a number of divisions, you've got to make sure they get there, make sure they win, because there's going to be counter. So they've crunched into those, and we get a very short range melee stroke firefight. Everyone gets to fight. And they've very few left now. That British division, they're caught in the open, cannons and their French division piled into them. But unfortunately, as you can see, the French division's on the road. They haven't got much left to actually take Haye Sainte with. So more reserves being brought up from the back now. The British are really starting to commit to this area. The guys behind the hedge they've been shooting. Everyone's joining in. I think there's more cavalry about to start appearing from the reserves. Yeah, as you can see, oh sorry, yeah, another round of melee, and the French division has shattered that British division. It's completely gone. So there's now, they're in touching distance of Haye Sainte as well. So going to try and knock out that garrison from there and try and open up the road. The number of casualties is easier to take one base off and merge what's left into one base of figures. It makes no difference in this game. It's nice and simple. Just whatever works out easier. So make a combined assault on the Haye Sainte. The division has just gone through that other British division and the ones on the road, quite reduced. And because they're attacking the buildings and these sixes on their dice, defenders are shooting out with wanting fours. They get around to shooting first with half the bases, then all the bases fighting the melee. And the attackers have to win them out to kick them out. There's quite a bit of carnage around the Haye Sainte. You can see hardly anything left of the attackers. But very few left on the defenders as well. It's been a proper bloodbath trying to get into the... Oh, back to Hougoumont. That garrison's getting reduced right down now. The last few bases. You know, the 6 being picked up. And I think Hougoumont will be about to fall there. Still a couple left. See that assault really failing to get into the Haye Sainte. But, oh, there's so few defenders left. Right, another attack on Hougoumont over here. Again, trying to assault the last few bases just to try and get in there. Almost reduced the defenders down to nothing. Oh, another 6 rolled there. That's almost all that. If they could just score more hits than they got back, it's 1. So time to commit the reserves that are marching down from Hull. How convenient to have an extra few divisions on that, just on the flank when you need them. So they're going to march all the way around and come to support the aid of the flank of Hougoumont. Just think what Wellington could have done if he hadn't left those men behind. Also, if you had the hill cut in half like this, we haven't built the other half yet. So the last 2 French cavalry reserves were lurking on this left flank, and they come springing out from that hill to charge them in the open. So they've tried to form square. Same situation again. Count how many bases, roll the number of dice. I made a great set of rolls and just about all of them moved into square. I think all bar 1 just got taken off. And the guys in square just slaughter the cavalry. You went in with the attack. Shouldn't have. Once they saw there was only 1 loose one, probably shouldn't have bothered. But there we are. At least they're in square, so they have to stop moving. Another division comes up from reserve. Oh yeah, and there's one. Yeah, the cuirassiers. The last of the cuirassiers there. So again, these guys are forced into square. But they've pretty much got Hougoumont covered now. But they couldn't move into it, which is what he's trying to do. So actually get into Hougoumont and really reinforce it. So they've stopped just outside in square because of the threatening cuirassiers. I'm sure this is just how the real thing happened. Wasn't it? Divisions, the attacks are beaten off, the cuirassiers came round. Another division, someone was caught in the open. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's quite a lot more coming up to support as well. So they're going to have to possibly form square because there's cavalry lurking around there. Thank goodness kept some back. Well, in fairness, I had some extras. You can see the pile of dead. We were putting them away in the box. But the game got faster and faster, more exciting, and it wasn't far off tea time. Or dinner time, depending on where in the world you are. Our evening meal. So they started getting piled up a bit. So Hougoumont looking safer and safer now. Oh, you can just see in the bottom right hand corner of the picture the cuirassiers. Sorry, dragoons. So dragoons have charged in, caught a few more battalions in the open as they've been rushing up. In this game, you can move as far as you like, but if you do a lot of moving, you don't have any reactions left to react to other things happening, like getting charged. So you have to think sort of abstract way about time. Let me sort of get there. In other words, they could have moved less far and had a chance to form square for certain, rather than take casualties off these dragoons. And back up to the Haye Sainte, and finally the last defenders. I think I allowed must have been some supporting artillery fired in there, just to wipe out the last few. And the French flag is flying over La Haye Sainte about 6 o'clock. Just like the real battle, Napoleon sends his dispatch back to Paris. Tell them Wellington's army is broken. Hey, the French flag in La Haye Sainte. Wellington, as correctly observed, does have a sword. And Arnie was considering the option of Wellington charging in personally. But Wellington is one man and each base is 500, so we chose against that. Yeah, let's bring round some more cavalry, but they're not much good against a building. So they'll have to lurk there to stop me going any further. And this is the scene at La Belle Alliance. We have the old guard, that big square base of them. In front of them is the young guard, with the last of the cuirassiers, the sort of guard cavalry. That's the reserve. Is it time for Napoleon to commit the guard? Oh, the other one you can see, by the way, was there. The division just above was the last of d'Erlon's to finally rally. It just refused to rally. It stood there, not happy. So with La Haye Sainte in French hands, the guard advances to march through. At this point, I have to remind the youngster that the objective is to get Napoleon plus a couple of divisions off through what's it called, Mont Saint-Jean. So they're well within range to do this. They have to stop at the town. The movement ends if you come to a building, and then so many units allowed through. But it didn't really come to that. There's Napoleon. One more advance, off the other end, and the game is saved. Enormous casualties, but Brussels is wide open. So just to try and distract and hold up and stop these guys coming across to reinforce. The remnants of the right flank attacks the hedge, the sunken road. And then you see the situation with the cuirassiers coming round to cover the flanks on the left and divisions on the right. There's a major advance through the centre. And the reserve is trapped in square by Hougoumont. They have to come out of square and move. So they might be able to help. Might be able to get there in time. They're going to have to move quickly. And while they're stuck in square, one last assault on Hougoumont. This is what you need. Some cavalry. The Union Brigade, if you remember, the survivors of the Scots Greys and the heavy cavalry rallied together and ready to try and catch the old guard in the open. Oh, even more of them. So guys, they're not much use attacking the town itself, so they come round the flanks to try and take the old guard in the open. But the cuirassiers are covering that flank, remember, and countercharge. So there's an almighty melee between the remnants of the heavy cavalry and some fresh cuirassiers. And the cuirassiers manage to fend off some of the heavy cavalry, but get beaten back. And with the old guard having shot poured into them from the flank by the artillery still on the hill, and more cavalry threatening, they're forced back down the road and have to form square. The Haye Sainte garrison is now left on its own. It must break out of there before the old guard can attempt to move back into the town. It can't afford to stay on the road waiting for them to clear it. At this point, Wellington realises he has some horse artillery deployed on the far left flank. Time to redeploy it from reserve. So miraculously it comes all the way around to the centre, just where it was required, and starts to pour short-range fire into the poor suffering garrison at La Haye Sainte. Devastating losses. And with a reserve division of infantry about to move across to the road, ready to recapture the next hour, the casualties of the French have just become too much. Today is not to be Napoleon's day. And again the battle ends with the old guard unbowed but shuffling off the back of the board, as the rest of the army fragments and starts to crash back towards France. Hope you enjoyed the report. Please leave some comments there, and look out for reports coming very soon when the full game is released and you see some more games out of the club. Thanks. Yeah, having just watched the video back, I thought I'd add a couple of comments on how I thought it all went, and I have to say I was really pleased how well the rules went along. It was a very simplified version, and it was played better and was more fun than I expected. It really was. The movement system is very intuitive. There's none of the fiddly measuring and arguing over things being in range and all that kind of stuff. It's all just intuitive, you know. They go until they are in range, and that's it. And then you do the firing, and the firing worked out quite well. The melees were short and bloodthirsty, and I don't know. Is this just one game trying them? And it'd be interesting to see. I'm even thinking maybe try this in a club game rather than the full rules. It gives a quick result. The whole game is probably less than an hour and a half. And yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. Well, and we know we all did. Thanks for watching.